Hello, everybody, and welcome to a conversation with artist Karen Kalmek. Hello, Karen.
Hi, Lisa. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you very much for joining us on this Zoom conference call. We are doing a very good job making sure that all of the exhibiting artists in the group show have a chance to talk about their work a little bit and connect with humans. Granted, it's online. It's the best way for us to make sure that people meet the artists. So thank you so much for participating.
Thank you for having me.
Let's first, you know what? For people who are driving by, you've had work in the windows at Creative Co-working.
Correct, yes.
Big pieces.
Two biggish pieces, yes.
Two biggish pieces. And right now you have a piece in the group show in the virtual gallery. Describe what that piece is.
Well, that was a piece that was done in two parts. I seem to gravitate towards a vertical dimension of art, Japanese sensibility, and for the one piece so it's fabric collage, and I was using a scissors, and what you learn with the scissors is that every cut really matters because it gives energy to the edges. And so the one piece is just two different colors. I worked very intuitively, selected the colors, and then created something very minimalistic but organic. So I loved the piece, but it sort of felt like it needed more. And in tandem, I've done another piece where it's all fabric, where I've taken, like if you look closely, it's very hard to see, but underneath, I've taken some pictures of blossoms on trees, and then I print that, like you print onto a t-shirt, printed that onto a fabric, and then cut that up and then mixed it with other fabrics. And so you get this mixed dimensionality. Some of the fabrics are see-through, transparent, so you get different shadings of the colors as you overlay the fabrics. And so I had these two pieces, and they were both beautiful, but sort of not finished. And that's kind of what an artist knows when it's just not finished. It's, I can't tell you why, it's just not finished. And so I had somebody say, well, why don't you cut them up? And that's very hard for an artist to do. When you think you've got something that you like, to then kind of destroy it. But you usually land up with a more interesting outcome.
And how are you printing the images onto the fabric? Are you doing block printing, or are you sending them through a printer?
So what you do is you get, there's a special paper that you print them onto, and then you use like a heat transfer. You transfer them onto the paper.
And they're big.
I mean, onto the fabric.
Are they 4 feet tall? How tall are they?
No, the sheets of paper are usually they're not that big, because I used a place downtown Evanston. They're about a 10 by 14 or so.
Okay.
And then you have to be very careful, because when you transfer it, you've got to take the paper off very fast. Otherwise, the paper doesn't come off and sticks to your fabric, and you don't get the image transfer. So that's a whole, process. It's like transferring, what they do on T-shirts, but less, how can I say, less sophisticated.
Okay.
It's not a screen print. It's not a screen print.
They're beautiful, and I love the layers to them. I just think and I love looking at them in the windows too at Creative Co-working, because I just feel like you can tell so much more of the dynamism versus just looking at a photo of it.
Yeah, and I mean, the panel, the pane thing is really not my thing. The structure and the organization of it. But what I've learned with art is that you just have to go with where it takes you. And I've had pieces that I did, 5 years, 10 years ago that I didn't like, and I pulled out 6 months ago, and all of a sudden I say, oh, I really like this. So the ego really has to get out of the way, because the art tells you, the art talks. When you're only in your rational head, you're in trouble, in my opinion, when you're making art.
What are you making right now? Has your practice been affected by shelter in?
Well, I'm actually an introvert, so I've actually liked the quiet. My daughter was in town, so that was lovely because she's been away for 4 years in college, and she's in grad school, and she came back for 2.5 months. But I like to live in my own head quite a bit. I read a lot. I'm a yoga practitioner, so I do a lot of. I feel my orientation is, I have a master's in psychology and education, and I feel that the body and the mind really work together. And a lot of times we forget that we're in a body. I know it sounds ridiculous, but a lot of my inspirations come through my body because I can be very cerebral. It's good for me to switch it off. And I work, I don't know if you've read anything about Calder, the famous, everybody knows who he is, who made the mobiles. And he had a very playful orientation to his art. And I use that technique a lot, which is serendipity, things that are in front of me, things that pull my attention, and I go with it. So I'm not a big planner. I don't spend a lot of time saying, oh, what is in this? I look at my materials and I go from there.
Nice.
Because it's not stressful. When you start thinking too much, then it's the judgment comes in. And I had a teacher who actually lives in Evanston, the only sort of art teacher I've ever had. Ilzia Rice, do you know her?
Ilzia Rice? No.
Anyhow, she lives like 5 minutes from me. And she taught us all no judgment. It's the most important lesson I ever learned.
And that is how you approach your work when you are creating, no judgment, ego out of the way?
Absolutely.
Interesting.
And then, because also I'm interested in process and I want to have pleasure through the process. There's enough pain out there. My art does not have to be there too. So the process is joy. And what I've learned, and I try to teach my daughter, is that, like, for example, we did a chalk work on the sidewalk when she was little, and she went out the lines, and she's a scientist now. She's in the sciences, and she was very upset with that. She went out the line. And what I showed her is that we continued the work outside the lines and created something new and beautiful because of the mistakes. So there are no mistakes.
Beautiful. So you don't miss the people. You're still very much working. How long have you been self-identifying as an artist or owning that sort of title?
Not that long. I grew up in a family where that was really not central at all. It was like, get a good profession. And well, actually, I'm 63. So I grew up in an age where you went to college if you were lucky, and then you got married. I didn't do that. And so I struggled for a long time because I didn't have a career. I started as a speech therapist and dropped out, and I got a lot of flack for that. But, I met people in my teens who were into the arts, and I always wanted to be around them. But I didn't identify myself as that. It took many decades, to be honest, many decades. And still now I struggle with it. Like, is my work good enough? Who do I think I am putting this stuff out there? But, you get to an age where it's like, this is not worth driving myself crazy about. It is what it is. A few people have given me feedback, people that I value. I have some very dear friends in New York who are accomplished artists. And I did a piece and they hung it up, and I was thrilled that they hung it up because it's like, it's worthy of them putting it up, and I really value their.
I love that question. It's, on the outset, it seems so simple, like, how long have you been making art? But everybody has such a rich answer. And there's this whole part of the population that says, oh, I came out At 3, I knew, because I never could stop making, but I didn't give myself permission to own that title until, I mean, it's a really wonderful question. And I love your answer too, because there is this layer of acceptance, right? Like, not only of yourself and the work you make, but other people, especially artists who you respect and whose work you like.
Also, you know, I worked many years in the corporate world and afterwards as a career counselor. And one of the things that I started using was visioning, meaning that I would have magazines for my clients, so visual images and words, and making big collages, once again, to bypass the rational mind, to help people to get to a deeper level of knowing who they are. So I've kind of used it in various things, but calling myself an artist is being very difficult.
Last question, who are your inspirations? Where do you draw your not only visualization or inspiration in your art, but also just personally?
Well, I've studied a lot of psychology. You know, I work with people, with career people. I used to work with them more. I do less of that now. But I really, I've read a lot about, not that much about Freud, but I got very into Jung. I used to go to a lot of lectures about Jung. The collective unconscious is definitely one of my big draws. I feel like there is a river running underneath, and we can tap in.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have the intent and the mindset to tap in. Like, for example, this book that I'm trying to write is set in the Namaqualand in South Africa. And I've been working on it for about 2 years. It's like another 10 years away, but I'm enjoying the process. And then I went to a lecture on Sunday, and they were talking about the same area. Namaqualand and this, you know, the beginning of human civilization and the Bushmen and different ways to restructure cultures. And I thought, this is all just banging into each other.
Mm-hmm.
And when that happens, I'm thrilled because I feel like I'm in the right place.
Nice. Wonderful. Well, Karen, I so much appreciate your time today, and I appreciate you joining the virtual show and being open to this sort of new way of meeting the artist.
Well, thank you so much, Lisa. Thank you for all you do. And it's an amazing service for the community. You are a little gem.
Tiny gem.
Very sparkly, right?
Thank you, Karen.
Okay, thank you.